We are on. I am excited to have you here today. I think what you're doing is really interesting. And I know when we initially started working together, we had a conversation. I was mentioning that, like, I feel like all of us are in a lane, but we're always like peeking over at what people are doing in the other lane. And
Yes.
so, you know, a lot of our work's in the agency and coaching world, and that's like what we've really mastered. And obviously you're rocking it with the coaching side of things in the business as well. But you really got your foundations in e-commerce, and that for all of us in the agency space, I feel like agency people where it's like, well, we know ads and let's peek over there. And same with real estate. We're all kind of looking at each other's stuff sometimes, trying to get inspired or figure it out. And it's interesting because I was mentioning to you when we started working together that we have a client who basically he uses his real estate investments to buy e-commerce stores. And then you started telling me about the arbitrage opportunity that you guys do, which is a little bit different than anything I've ever heard. And I thought, well, this I think would be something that's awesome for anybody who's at the point where, you know, once they start hitting these multiple seven figures, they start trying to figure out, well, what do I do with all this money in the first place?
Yeah.
A lot of the times too, you know, we're looking at options like, for example, maybe I put it into real estate. Maybe I put it back into my own business. Maybe I put it into, you know, some sort of digital assets. And when my client was saying how he was buying e-commerce stores, I was like, that's amazing. And they cash flow and pay themselves back so much faster than an actual real estate asset, which I thought was pretty interesting. So I'm excited to pick your brain here and really learn about arbitrage, how you're doing arbitrage, what it is, and as well how you transitioned into the process of teaching others how to do it, and then tell the listeners as well about your guys' reorganization and how you've dramatically increased your success rates. Because I think that of anything, you guys are going to want to stay till the end for that, because what you told me was amazing. And I think that anybody who's building a coaching or training business needs to hear that in order to be able to set their students up for success, you know?
Yeah.
So everyone, this is Ann, and Ann, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit and kind of tell them who you are, where you're from, what you do. And I know I covered a little bit of it, but we want to hear it from you.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks. Great to be here as your guest. I came online actually 15 years ago, 16 officially, and I had done real estate investment. We also were in the automotive industry up in St. Paul, Minneapolis, of the Twin City area of Minnesota. And it was a new law that came out that wiped out that business, and we were doing real estate investment at the same time. And I was also homeschooling our three boys at the same time. So dribbling a lot of balls, very, very entrepreneurial, very, do a few things kind of a deal. Anyways, we ended up moving on from real estate investment because we moved south was one reason. And, you know, real estate in terms of that turnaround, one, you're depending on that monthly cash flow through real estate investment, that is, and that can vary so much because inevitably you got a water heater you have to replace, or this or that, or this and that monthly cash flow really is not like this steady, consistent thing that they talk about. Home ownership is home ownership, and there's always snags along the way. And plus we did it more as rookies. We didn't have someone to take care of it for us. You know, it was just one or two properties, and we basically had our sons help us out in that business. So I've had a taste of that, and we actually ended up selling at the worst time in the market, missed out about a $70,000 profit by 1 year. It was right after the crash, but we just wanted to unload. Our CPA said, hey, you need to stick with your wheelhouse, which is online marketing, where we really succeeded. So I actually came online as a digital marketer, and I had 3 training manuals, and we did 4.2 million with my first ebook in 2007, and then built a subscriber list through the 2 free ebooks that funneled into that paid book. And we really didn't, you know, starting then, and this is many years ago, 2007, didn't have the whole back end dialed in. Yep. And it's kind of that thing about, well, when you're getting going, you can only have so much dialed in, and then it's a little bit of learn as you go. It's really hard to have everything perfect from the get-go. So our experience was we really crushed it at the front end. and built a really good list out of that. We actually transitioned into e-commerce in 2013, the fall of 2013. So it's been 7 years. But my wheelhouse has always been training and mentoring and coaching. And that's what when I first came online, it was teaching, mentoring people how to have an online sales funnel. So that's my main expertise. And that's what I continue to do as the digital marketer of my training company. And so I'm the marketing director of the company and create all the funnels, et cetera, et cetera. So we shifted into e-commerce, and I'm going to just tell you, it was sometimes the market pushes you to make a pivot. And basically the market is this. So I was in the direct sales industry, and none of the advertising channels, as it turns out, is very fond of the direct sales industry. So no sooner would be up and running in Google AdWords and bammo, me and another 10,000 direct response marketers lost our accounts. Now I'm back on, of course, and thankfully. And then the same with Facebook. And so I kind of got tired of it. Just basically getting really high converting funnels going and then having the door slammed in my face. Whereas with e-commerce, yes, it is a home biz app, but I think it's definitely seen as more legitimate than the direct sales / network marketing industry. So just to put it all into context, primarily I'm a digital marketer, and my expertise is developing out the training and mentorship program and creating the marketing pieces to promote that.
So how did you discover the e-commerce opportunity that you're doing? And then give us a little background on sort of that, when you found it, and then how it came to be in its current form.
Yeah, it was kind of all by accident, so to speak. First of all, I had homeschooled my sons for 12 years, and I taught them to be entrepreneurial because we've always had a number of businesses. They did eBay when they were, one was in junior high, the other was in senior high. And so they were doing eBay, and I had my little job of running the youngest son off to the post office to make sure the products were shipped out very fast. And that, Mom, we got to have a 5-star review. Got it. Okay. So that was my contribution to that, but they pretty much ran that business by themselves. It was Lord of the Rings memorabilia, Marine memorabilia. We had a lot of swords in our house. 3 boys with a lot of niches. That's right. So anyways, we had already had a taste of it. And what happened is, because I was in direct sales and I built many teams through that, is then there was an network marketing / affiliate program. I really saw it as an affiliate. It was a two-tier affiliate program. And it was actually my coaching mentor from 16 years ago. He was testing it. It's like, Ann, this thing works. And so I told my husband about it. He said, yeah, I'll give it a shot. My husband started to make money, and he's not very non-techie. And I'm like, well, okay, if my non-techie husband can do this, then I'm pretty sure my current members, who I was teaching attraction marketing or funnel building to, I thought they should do really well. So it was a New Year's Eve promo. Everybody signed up, and everybody started making money almost immediately. And so, and they would have to create listings and do keywords, which is something that I had taught and trained them on. And that really caught my eye. I thought, okay, this is a whole lot more fun to be selling something that creates success so quickly for my members that it's gratifying, right? We like to do things where the results come back quickly. And I didn't mention earlier, I was a gymnastics coach 15 years. So this whole thing about teaching, training, coaching is just something that I really, really have an affinity for. But nonetheless, so that was successful. And then of course I had been a top affiliate marketer for many years, and I had a top affiliate program as well. So we put together all our affiliate marketing pieces of our own to promote this particular direct sales company, including our added value events. So we'd been doing events as it was for about 5 years prior, and we're like, heck, let's start doing our own events. And pretty much what happened is what I was providing then ended up being a more value than the actual company that we were referring to. Subsequent to that, and this is, you can just watch this historical phenomenon, that company went under. And it's like,
which company was it?
I don't know if I even want to say the name.
Sure.
But they ended up, I can kind of spot those things from afar and go, yep, here comes the decline.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. And it was sad because they had a lot going for themselves. They really did. But I could just see the writing on the wall. And I'm like, well, I was good and set to go because we had such a solid infrastructure before promoting it. And then we were really quick to build our own back office, our own affiliate, marketing materials, etc. So then the term that I've coined since then is to deep blue oceans and beyond. And that is that e-commerce is just so deep. So deep. I'll give you a quick example of it. So we have our 90-day peak performance, brought in a member January 1st. We've interviewed her twice, once after 30 days. She had her automated e-commerce business set up. We just interviewed her Saturday. She's now got a lead generation company as a auxiliary business around her e-commerce business. And that's what I love, is when our members can come into this space and have so many opportunities available to them to really strengthen, instead of, sometimes you throw down your roots and the roots, there goes that industry.
Yeah.
Have to swim over and find another one. No, been there and done that. E-commerce is not going away.
Yeah. It's only growing. And with everything going on right now, it's become more and more obvious that it's here to stay. And it's, one of the things I found has been interesting, and I've often thought about this, like what percentage of people are going to go back to buying stuff in the store that had to convert now that this is all happening, right? So I can't imagine it. Like, my mom, for example, she's now ordering food as well from Instacart and stuff like that, and they've never done that.
Right.
To me, it's like I can't even imagine going back to a store once you do it. And so with e-commerce, we start to realize how easy it is now that it's necessary. It kind of took away a lot of the objections, which everybody's is almost always the same. I want to see it. I want to feel it. I want to try it on. But with the ease of returns and whatnot, those almost go right out the window, which is interesting. So it's really unique. I think your journey is almost that you had already done the coaching and training, and you built the organization. You took your sales skills, you took your marketing skills, and your problem was different than a lot of people's, which is how do I get the sales and marketing skills? Your problem was, where do I channel them?
Yes.
And so you told me a little bit about arbitrage and how you're doing e-commerce arbitrage. What can you explain it to the people watching, and sort of what this opportunity is, and then how you discovered specifically e-com arbitrage?
Yeah, just so people are clear. So primarily we teach through Amazon, and then they can scale from there and move into Shopify. I always believe in starting with the path of least resistance for a member, so that you mitigate the risk factor as much as possible. And new sellers have no clue of the big picture view of, am I stepping into the deep end of the pool with this method, or am I in the shallow end of the pool? And so we have taught every method from arbitrage on up to private label sourcing from China and Shopify. And so obviously it's best when someone's brand new that you start with that path of least resistance, so that you can better ensure their success and help them build their foundation. So arbitrage is simply, and it was in part through this original company that I was with, but we layered on and then built a book flipping program, and then we built online arbitrage. They basically taught local retail arbitrage. So arbitrage is just a fancy word that means buy low, sell high. So if you've been in real estate, that's kind of like flipping houses, except you go in and you fix them up, and a whole lot more risk. When that return on investment, the market can change, so many factors, and you got all that money in there. Whereas with product flipping, you're basically at its most fundamental form through local retail arbitrage is you download an app from Amazon. It's called the Amazon Seller app, and it's free. And so with that app, you then, through the camera on your phone, you're going to scan the UPC code of products. And what happens through that app is it's searching, and it will identify if that product is on the Amazon catalog. So this product, for example, right there, this is Burt's Bees. Very, very well-known brand. Okay, I strictly only buy through Amazon now because I just can't find this particular product through my local stores, even though I originally did. But nonetheless, so when you scan the UPC code, and this happens in a microsecond, it's just boom, like that. and it will identify if it's in the catalog. Then it dishes up these beautiful, gorgeous data points. And the data points are for you then to make a calculated decision, essentially as an investor. So I tell people, okay, you're thinking you're a shopper. Yeah, you're shopping at a store. But what you really are is an investor. And so you have so many data points that you can make a really smart, savvy, calculated decision to put that money into, let's say, this product, and know how many other sellers there are, know what the sales velocity is, know what the profit is. There is no gotcha. I know everyone always, they look really high and low. There's got to be a gotcha. There's got to be a gotcha. The only gotcha is this, is other sellers could jump on that same listing after you had bought it when you determine, there's only 5 sellers. I should be good to go. And then, it lands in the store, especially during Q4. There's an extremely high level of velocity that it's like a bucking bronco. It's quite, Q4 is amazing, which we had a repeat of that with COVID, by the way. But nonetheless, so local retail arbitrage, that's what you're doing, is using your smartphone and scanning. We also have a specialty program for book flipping, because our master trainer had done that 5 years, generating a 6-figure income, just flipping books, used books to sell on Amazon, which is how Amazon got started. But the one that we really put together, our high ticket, so to speak, is with online arbitrage, because that meets all 3 pillars of the e-commerce success that we teach our members, which is to generate cash flow, automate systems, and build assets. And so our promise to them, our value proposition, is that in 90 days, when they follow our instructions, and we've proven it over and over, you will have a profitable, automated e-commerce business set up in 90 days. So that's where we landed, because we found that the biggest point of failure was life gets in the way. They're no longer consistent in their business. This is why they need, for example, VAs who then do the grunt work, so their business keeps working with or without them.
Yep. And I think it's really interesting. And I want to highlight what you're saying for anyone watching this, which was, how do I design my product, and how do I design my coaching and the training to go to the path of least resistance? How do I get that fast, easy, low-hanging win, and then start to be able to compound that win and then take them to the more advanced levels if they want to go there? And if they don't, that's great too. But I think there's something for anyone out there that's watching this right now. When you're designing your offers, when you're designing how to deliver the offer, how to make the promise, how to be able to make sure that you're making a promise, and then within integrity, delivering on it in a tight timeline, thinking like what Ann's saying there, because that's like, it's so subtle when you said it, but it's just such a big difference. Whereas like, if you were to start at private label, now we got to go buy bulk product. We don't know if the supplier is good or not. There's so many variables that could happen. You get, the money's tied up as it's coming on a barge over here. So you got, however many 3 weeks before you even see it. If you're lucky at that point, could get stopped in customs. And if it does get stopped in customs, God forbid. And if that person's tight too, and they're really like trying to make anything work, those 2 months can really hurt someone. Whereas what you're doing is smart. It's like, okay, what's the low hanging fruit? What can we get them that first sort of like taste of it?
Yes.
And then take it, rinse it, repeat it, and then scale it.
Yeah, we call it proof of concept, and we want them to get that as fast as possible. Call it a dopamine hit, whatever people want to call it, is it worked, eureka.
Yep.
And it's like, I remember the first sale my son and I made online. It was just like, oh my gosh, it worked. It was a sales funnel selling a product, and it was like, and I always tell people, I can give you proof up the wazoo, but until you do it yourself, it's not the same. It always will seem like, and so did it. So we always want to really make sure they get to that proof of concept as quickly as possible. And we've had people, they're in profitability in 2 weeks. It's because of Amazon. It's just an unreal machine. Did you want me to delve into the nuances of, getting for me, I feel like I'm in the lucky bucket, because it just is a faster turn than when I taught building sales funnels. And not so much of a fast turn. You got to have traffic to test your squeeze page, you're this and you're that. But when it comes to this, Amazon, they've done the marketing.
Yeah.
They've got the customer list, they got the prime buyers, it's done, so it's like super cheating and in a good way. But I've done the other kind of stuff too, not as an agency, but as a training and mentoring and coaching program.
Yeah, it's interesting as well, right? Because a lot of the pricing of the products are technically going to be lower, so it's an easier barrier to get them to spend. It's on Amazon. We already trust Amazon anyway. And then I think that with Amazon, now the other thing that you have to your advantage is all the tools, like being able to see, keywords,
Yes.
how many searches are you getting per month on a specific keyword, and, the advertising inside of Amazon. There's so many tools in and around Amazon that make your life easier if that's where you're going to go first. So that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when you said with the teaching sales funnels, you meant for the students, it was harder for them to get that first value. Is that what you meant?
Yeah, with my former training company,
Yeah.
that was more difficult because it always has to start with traffic. So
Yeah.
they're going to have to either learn paid advertising, they got to be real good at direct response marketing, or they're going to have to do social media, one or the other. But no matter what, you put in a fair amount of sweat equity before you start getting that flow. And then that's got to go through the offer to see if it converts. I mean, there's a lot to that entire process. And it would take longer. People got results, but it was nothing like e-commerce, And speaking of, with the real estate investors and people who have extra cash flow, e-commerce is just such a simpler model. Once you get your systems in place and your team in place to run them for you, and I mean, we've got some people who are really good at project management, and they've got great, awesome teams that are running their business for them. So once you have that part of the formula done, it is, I'm not going to call it set and forget, because there's always fluctuations in the marketplace and this kind of thing, and someone leaves and this and that, but it's just such a simpler, cleaner model than these more sophisticated, advanced, whether they're agencies or whatever other options or what I previously did, they're just more sophisticated.
Makes sense. It makes sense. A lot of sense. And what I think specifically with what you're mentioning, it's like selling a product doesn't require the same level of copywriting, direct response skills. And I did notice that was a sticking point for a lot of people. And in fact, like with a lot of what we do, we chose to serve the upper end of the market because it's the people who have already developed those skills, and now I don't have to teach them it. I can just help them scale their team and their sales team specifically. And that was our choice. And I think a lot of like what we're describing is this concept that we talk about internally a lot. It came up in our weekly meeting today, which is first value, right? So first value is that first moment that your customer experiences like the joy of using or owning or buying your product. And in your case, your first value is when someone gets that first sale on Amazon. And then in our case, our first value is when someone gets the first sale from the salesperson that they've got on board. And with the sales funnels as well, it's someone getting their first sale. But what we're looking at is back to that question, I think is kind of the key of everything, which was what is the fastest and easiest and lowest hanging fruit that I could get someone to first value. And then how can I crunch that time frame down? And then at that point, it's cool because your product's more sticky and people want to work with you longer because now you've delivered on your promise much quicker. It wasn't as difficult. And that comes out of the product engineering side, which that's kind of where I'd like to segue our conversation. Cause I know you guys mentioned, when we started working together that you had spent so much time last year, just kind of like pulling your product apart and then reconfiguring it. So walk us through the before and then the after of how you overhauled the product and what that all looked like and what the results have been there.
Yeah, definitely. So it's called eCommerce Acceleration. We developed it fall of 2017, which was an upsell through an ascension funnel. We had started with a $37 product, and then it went to a side hustle $997 product, and then it went to this $3K. And it was definitely, worked really, really well. And then it was this past, primarily December, where we stepped back and it's like, okay, how can we make this thing even better? The e-commerce acceleration program. And it was two of my main team members who really put their heads into that to, pull it apart and how can we improve upon it, especially our master trainer. And he noted it was really a behavioral issue more than anything, as a point of failure or I should say more a circumstantial issue on the end of our members, in that many of them, probably 70% is B2C for us and 30% are B2B. Business owners, realtors, people who want to add in an additional cash flow, or they lost their businesses and now they want a new one, etc. But the B2C. And so looking at that, what we saw as the biggest problem was disruption in their life, because they're mostly C's, consumers. And, grandma got ill, son broke his leg, this, that, and everything. Life got in their way. And then they're losing their consistency of their business. And so that's what is, as he studied, and I agreed, I said, yeah, because it's like they're clipping along and then, now they dropped the ball because they got to stop for a month because of XYZ. And so from his own experience, it was, well, once I got a VA in place and a team of VAs, that's when it was sky's the limit, and so that's when we restructured it. That was part of it. It was one piece, because that's what we always like to do. Where's the point of failure and how do we correct that? How do we mitigate that? And so it became we moved beyond, we're not just selling another method, another sourcing method. We're providing a system for them to create an automated business. So usually the distinction in the e-commerce space, if you go out there and you scope it out, oh, he's teaching Shopify. Oh yeah, they got private label. He's got sourcing China. And that's how they are known, is by their particular, where they hang their hat for their particular sourcing method. We wanted it to be that from day one, being that if they didn't have systems in place and a team to run them for them, they just couldn't get to the big numbers, the big scale. So that was definitely built into it. When we then layered on, it's come to be known as 90-day peak performance. So we quantify things, and the brain in marketing works a lot better when you have your value proposition. And in 90 days, you tell me I can have thus and thus. That's what I'm telling you. And so that made a really big shift in the marketing, but it has literally come true. This started on New Year's Eve day, and a gal who joined on that webinar, in 30 days, she had all set up. She went actually further. It's like she decided to get a Shopify store set up and this and that, but she was making sales by day 13 and made sales every single day with the exception of 3 in the month of January.
Wow.
And had VAs. She hired 2. And she had already offset that work. She already hired someone to run the account for her. And so it was like, yeah, it was proven very, very quickly. So that's just one part. The other is this, and this comes somewhat from my, in the sports world, is tracking. Now I've taught tracking for 12 years since I've been online, and we have an end of day tracker tool in our back office. But I'm talking about accountability in a public setting. And I remember when I went through consultative selling way back when I came online, there was this public disclosure of your numbers and the this and the that. And I thought, oh, fine. It's going to be public, is it? Well, I'm going after it. I like it. It's going to make the stars rise up, kind of a thing. And so we do in our weekly calls, and this takes a lot of care and attention. It's not, you'd have to have the staff to accommodate this. Everyone is tracked. And it's shown in front of everybody. You're there. Did you finish this homework? And we had already done that for almost 2 years through our 10-day accountability boot camp, which everyone gets when they come into the program, no matter what training product. But so we took it to a whole nother level. And I remember a coach I had when I came online, he said, when you make it public, it's a whole different game. People are watching. And then therefore, typically, people will perform better, especially those who are performance driven.
That's super interesting.
Yeah, so it really made a big shift. And and our big claim is there is no one who can come here and say they didn't get the help they need. And I say it in my promos. And I said, but what could happen on the other hand is you don't show up. And that will be the biggest point of failure. But we're down on the football. We're around the field, ready to run with you to the end goal. So anyways, yeah, it was setting it up so that they would get into automation a whole lot sooner, pushing them out of their comfort zone through this whole training and mentoring to get them with their VAs and whatnot. And we have the systems to give them the blueprint, but also that high level accountability.
Interesting. So I just want to unpack that. It's first was, okay, we did the analysis of our data. And then I just, out of curiosity, like when you guys went through the data, how did you guys come to the conclusion that it was circumstantial or something personal that was causing people to not be able to figure it out? So I'd like to explore that. And then also one thing just to clarify, because I think it didn't come up, but prior you guys were doing like a open-ended or a year-long program. I think it was a year, right?
That's a good question. It ends up being a monthly. So they have their initial 3K and then it's a recurring monthly because we have 12 small group coaching sessions a month. I mean, I've just touched the tip of the iceberg of what we offer in terms of the high touch, high help. So that they can't come back and say, but I didn't get help. We also have a private mastermind group and it's very, very, very active. So the point of failure ends up being them. But we even have a system after the fact. You miss a week, boom, we're on you with another email. Miss 2 weeks. And we've got a whole data spreadsheet because our fight, if you will, is we want the best performance out there in the industry. Now, we're never going to know that. We don't know what other people's is, but that's our own personal quest. Is we care enormously. We put in a lot into our folks, so we want maximum performance is what we're going after.
And so you went from that open-ended month to month to we're now at 90 days. We know like, hey, let's put the blinders on. Let's stay focused for these 90 days and get this set up to where it's automated. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's interesting. And I want to highlight that because, you know, if you're here and you're listening to this and you're trying to figure out your fulfillment, you can see like, not only did that help you on the marketing side, but it also helps on the delivery side because people have that end date. And so they're running towards something and they know that, hey, this is going to end. And so there's nothing like, I think anyone who's marketed long enough knows there's nothing like a deadline to inspire action.
That's right.
And so by putting in that deadline, rather than that open-ended, I'll support you forever thing, you end up getting better results, which is counterintuitive, but it makes perfect sense when you really unpack it.
Yeah, it's totally that. They want to get that slam dunk come in 90 days. And then we have a graduation. We actually send out physically mail certificates of completion.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's physical. And then so the marketing is so luscious because then we bring them into a Zoom call and everybody hold up your certificate. And then, you know, we do content expansion through our marketing. It's just like gorgeous. And then them sharing what their experience was like. And many say it's unlike anything I've ever experienced. It's meant to be super hands-on. It's meant to really serve the performers, the producers, who if they just get that help they need step by step along the way and they take off like a rocket. That's what we're doing. That's
cool. One thing I also want to say that I'm like, I love that you did this and I just have to highlight it because the thing that gives a lot of what we do a bad rap, and to me, it's my ultimate pet peeve, is to blame it on mindset. And instead you guys you unpacked the data, you found that, hey, it's not mindset, it's a circumstance. And there is a real problem that's occurring in these people's lives. And how do we solve that problem? Well, what if we automated it? And we automated it as quickly as we possibly can. So if they're there or they're not there due to whatever life events happen, they're still going to get the outcome that we're promising. And like, that's just going that extra step. And it's dramatic when you see the outcome. Cause I know you mentioned like when we started talking, your completion rates and the actual success rates of clients has, I think you mentioned, how many multiple times over has it increased?
At least doubled. You know, they're coming in every day. So this completion part to get the full stats. And this started at the beginning of the year, but the first go through was astounding because it was a whole new batch that we brought in, so to speak, when we kicked it off. It was on New Year's Eve that, you know, then we're all watching, and there's these 3 phases. Everything is very documented. And just this morning, we had a staff meeting and we're making further optimizations, you know, iterations too. It's just this constant study. And I'll tell you where it comes from for me personally. So having been in the sports world, I had my first coach was terrible. She was good that she knew technique and such, but she certainly didn't know psychology of how to work with people. And she was like the proverbial German. She was German, and she just barked and yelled, and there were a lot of injuries in the gym. Then I go to someone else's gym to learn, and he says, yeah, if you're going to be teaching under me, I'm going to teach you how to teach. Sign me up, you know? And he taught progressions. She didn't teach progressions. All of a sudden, I'm doing a back handspring on the balance beam, and I couldn't do one on the floor. That makes no sense. And I ended up whapping her in the face when she was spotting me. Well, it was illogical. There's got to be a measure of logic in it. And so what I learned from that was these 2 coaches by contrast. Secondly was, just because someone is a really great gymnast does not by any means mean they're going to be a great coach, because they don't know how to think in the deeper analytical phase of, wow, that's not working for her. I wonder what we could do differently. For them, it was like breathing in their natural, and what's her problem anyways? Must be mindset. And so when I was teaching my kids, and both my parents were teachers, so, but I would go, all right, I wonder if I can break this skill down more. I think she's lacking flexibility here. She needs more strength there. And it was my job to study the student and look for that optimization, those deeper nuances that I could help this gymnast perform XYZ that others shouldn't stand a chance, you know? And so, and I will say, there is a lot to be said for what that person brings, their A game or not. We can all agree on that. But you can also help elevate people into an A game. I can't say we do it across the board. I'm gonna say we still have people, and it shocks me. They pay their money down and they never show up. But you know what? I am them. I have bought programs. I buy a lot of programs where they got this, they're selling it now and they won't be selling for another year, and I know I'm going to need it. So I get that, because I buy a lot of training for my own staff. And that's what happens. But we're really trying to get people who really, that's part of that qualification process too, though, right? Because I want them to be actively engaged, but everyone buys for their own reasons, right? So anyways.
And it's interesting. I mean, sometimes you only need that one thing out of the product to make it all worth it as well. You know, like I bought plenty of products and all I got was one idea, but that idea was all I needed out of the product, you know? And so not everybody needs to read the whole book. Of course, we like it when they do read the whole book, but as long as they get what they need, that's what matters. I also find it very interesting what you're describing with the progressions, because so I had 2 coaches in high school for wrestling. So I had a very similar experience, but the one coach, we never had a state champion ever. We had only one person in the time that I was there go to states in the first place. And we actually got a second person. So, but we were just terrible. Then we got this new coach after they kind of pushed that coach out. We got a new coach, and right now he wins states every year.
Wow.
And like all the kids win states, the team wins states. Like if he might not have 1 or 2 weight classes that win states versus the other guy, it was just like, well, this is just what it is. And we just thought this is what it is. We're just this way. And he just systematically did what you're talking about. He made it all about progressions, and it's, you know, you need to learn this and you need to learn this, and you need to, where are they deficient? Well, they're not strong enough, so we need to hit the weights harder, or we need to do this. And then he was able to like systematically transform the organization. And that's always been something that's really interesting for me to see, the juxtaposition of their coaching styles. And the one would teach you everything, but it wasn't always in that progression, like what you're saying. Whereas the other guy, he wouldn't teach you everything, and it would be annoying because I'm like, my curiosity wants to know everything, but he would limit you to what you needed to know at the moment when you needed to know it. And then that was what compounded and built you into a much better wrestler.
Mm.
So it's cool. It's very much like when you said it, I was like, oh my goodness, that's the difference. That's the two.
Yeah.
And it's this funny thing too with us, like it's the same thing as with teaching salespeople. Like my first time teaching a salesperson, I always joke, but I mean, it's real. Like I feel bad. The guy quit sales after I tried to train him because I was so bad at trying to train him how to sell, because I was an amazing salesperson and I thought I knew how to train sales, but I couldn't. I had no clue what I was doing. And it wasn't until I like unpacked it and then built those progressions that then the training of sales started to work. But initially, and it's that same thing, like, oh, what's wrong with him? Why can't he do it? And you just think that it's so intuitive and second nature for you. You feel like everybody else is stupid or, you know, but taking the time to slow down and unpack that work and take the ownership of every part of it and then build it into a strong product. That's what I really find exciting. And like, to be honest, I'm way more excited about the customer that buys again than the customer that buys the first time, even though we are doing the sales stuff. When you have a product that consistently delivers, there's nothing better than that.
Yeah. Well, it's mastery, and it's really having the love and the intrigue. You know, call it a chase. You know, I know sales and chasing sales. This is the chase of optimization for changing people's lives and the results. And so ours is an end outcome that has a bigger view philosophically. On my own end is I do believe that the more entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs we have, the better the world will be, because and I always speak into it because it is truly my point of reference. So I tell people I'm not, and I'll tell them very clearly during my promo webinars, I say, here's who we're not. We're not just selling yet another digital marketing program. You can go out and find 1,000 other digital marketing products. That's not my business model. My business model is developing entrepreneurs. And so it's, when you're developing people, that's like the highest level science out there, because it's not easy. That's where if you hit a wall of frustration and it's really truly not your space to be there with, people are people and they're sophisticated and they're nuanced and all this, and how do you create, you know, behavioral shifts, etc., and take ownership of being able to create that optimal environment. That's a love and a passion all unto itself for that unique space. That is vastly different than pumping out digital marketing programs, which I know I've been here 15 years, so there's a ton of stuff going on out there, but it's a completely different individual organization where the focus is actually truly on that individual. And so I always tell people I'm empowering the family economy, because that's my backstory. Is all my sons grew up in my business. They all have done the business with me. They've gone on. One is my full-time videographer right now. I have a son in China, et cetera, et cetera. But all to say, I'm in the people entrepreneurial development space, which is just so rewarding and so cool. I don't want to just sell a product that I don't get to track what happens to that individual. You know, like I was just sharing, so we do this, it's called Saturday Morning Live, akin to a Facebook, you know, like what we're doing right now, and featuring this gal she's now 6 months out and she's launching a new business on top of her Amazon business. Oh, wow. Yay! And she's got 6 VAs now, you know, so she is going to another level as an entrepreneur and building out a whole new economy. And so I just find that shifting the world ever so much every time we have an entrepreneur like that.
Yeah, it's a pinch me moment always when you have to think about it too. Like, you know, there's her and then her direct family, then the VAs and all their families, and like whatever that ripple effect is and how far it goes, it's always really amazing to me. Like, and I think what you're describing is something that I talk a lot about with how we design our product, which is that when you're dealing with people are complex systems. Yes. They're not linear, simple, do this, then do that, you know. press A, get B. It doesn't work that way. Like there's emotions, and it's funny because, you know, my wife, she's a mechanical engineer by nature. So sometimes like her brain is, everything's a linear, it's all Newtonian physics. And the fact that people don't behave sometimes in alignment with Newtonian physics, it like frustrates her. And when we're dealing with it, you know, we have to take in that Newtonian physics. So how do we design the systems?
That's right.
But then how do we add that people element to it and then create redundancies or make sure we're removing any potential errors, and you have contingencies and all these things built in. It's really sometimes it's a painful problem to solve, right? You know, you're like, oh, you bang your head against the wall all day sometimes, but then once you find that like that's it and you see it work, there's nothing more rewarding.
Yeah, systems drive behavior. So I think of, for example, the accountability and how they develop their peer friendships through the accountability program, the 10-day boot camp alone. But also just putting out in front of some people is we have a certification program. So we don't really pronounce and sell it out front per se, you know, but it's just that's a trigger for some people. Oh, she's got a system where I can get certified. And for these certification mode kind of people, which is when I came online, the program had a certification program. And I thought, man, it better be based on results. I'm so not interested. It was for sales. And then oh no, they had the parameters. I'm all in then. Because if it's not results based and you're just getting a certificate to put on the wall without real proof and results behind it. But that's just an example of a system in a system that we have that. And that cultivates certain behaviors to draw people towards that as a magnet that, oh, when I get successful, I could potentially be a coach and trainer in your system. Man, that's what we're talking about. You know, so it's always looking for the behaviors that reward positive behaviors and not the negatives.
Yep. I've loved it. This has been a really fun conversation. So anybody who is interested then in potentially getting into arbitrage and kind of getting that first taste of success in e-commerce with you guys, where would they go to find you or learn more about what you guys are doing?
Go to eCommerceBusinessSchool.com. That's our website, eCommerceBusinessSchool.com. You'll see kind of an overview of who we are, what we do. And then also there's some free training at the top right. There's a button that you can go through that. And that's where you find out about our arbitrage offer.
And I think it's just like, compared to everything I see out there, when you started mentioning it, I was like, oh, that's a home run, especially because of how easy it is, the low hanging fruit, the not being tied up in inventory, not being tied up with all those issues that are going to get someone tripped up in the beginning. I think it's really neat what you're doing. So
thank you. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us. And, you guys, if you have any questions, just drop them below in the comments, and then we'll circle back and get to your questions after the interview. So we'll periodically check it out throughout the days. And if there is any question that we can't answer, we'll tag Ann, and then she'll be able to help you guys out as well. And then go check her out at eCommerceBusinessSchool.com. See what they're doing. I think that what they're doing is really unique. And again, I appreciate you for coming on today and chatting about what you're working on.
You're welcome. I appreciate being here.
That's it for this week's interview. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did enjoy this interview, we do one like it every single week inside of our free Facebook group called 7-Figure Agency Owners and High Ticket Coaches. So if you're an agency owner, coach, service provider, and you're really wanting to scale to 7 figures and beyond, join us inside the group. It's coachingsales.com/group. Again, coachingsales.com/group. See you on the inside.